Good afternoon, Wizards. Hope you're all having a great start to the week so far. Monday afternoon. Hope everything's going smoothly and going very well indeed. Now, finally managed to get a hold of the charts after having a very busy night as per working on the Wizard platform. Now, what we're looking at right now on the BTC side, the trade is currently still running in profit. As you can see, the stop loss placement here for visual purposes is around $8,287. Now, what I've actually done on my platform and on my actual personal trades is extended this up to around 8,350. The reason being is because we've seen some frantic movement across BTC and XRP, and of course across the market overall. So we've seen a breakout from this trend line of XRP right now, as you can see, which is something that we actually understood as a massive possibility. This is why stop losses were placed at break even in the event during this risky region this would occur. So not only did we enter a very small position in comparison to the overall moves we captured from BTC and XRP across these huge regions over here, we've actually managed to still sustain a profit on the BTC side. So XRP closed out at break even, no losses occurred whatsoever. BTC still in profit, and not just that, we also took some profit off the table around here as well, as per the Telegram guidelines. So no matter what's happened, even with this pullback in the market, this is the importance of capturing those precise and phenomenal sniper entries, because it allows you to actually gain a breathing space for your trade to move and still attain a massive profit throughout the process. So the beauty is XRP hitting a stop loss at break even has not incurred any losses. You've got a BTC trade that you've taken profit from, hopefully, if you followed the guidelines, and it's still floating in profit. So we're still running around almost 300 pips in profit off this singular move alone. So all I've done is I've dragged my stop losses higher a little bit. Not always something I recommend, but in these rare scenarios where you've caught such a perfect entry, not always rare for the Wizards, but something in this scenario where your entry is precise, you're in massive profit, and you've taken profit off the table, I can still comfortably increase my stop loss a little bit higher, knowing I'm still going to make a profit if this trade is closed. And that's the beauty of understanding risk to reward management and also understanding stop loss placements. No matter how much I give in terms of trade calls, I will always ensure I'm drilling home that message about stop losses, because as I've always said, they're not the enemy, they are here to protect you in the event something drastic happens in the market. So if we go over to XRP, now again, ignore the stop loss here because this was at break even, just above this resistance level here. We've seen some consolidation, and if I go over to the daily time frame, we can see a nice large breakout of this zone, which again for me, pretty interesting to see, and it's something we're now going to take into consideration for long opportunities. Because the prior trade was simply an additional and so-called bonus trade, I wasn't really too worried about it anyway. The minute those stop losses go to break even, all emotional attachment should be disassociated from that trade altogether. And even before you're taking those trades, as you slowly start to incorporate the Wizard mindset and the Wizard strategies, there should be no emotion before the trade, no emotion throughout the trade, and no emotion after the trade. And that is the ultimate key when it comes to trading. So with a break even hit on this trade, that means there's no losses occurred, and it means you've now lost absolutely nothing, and you still have that same capital allocated that you originally risked for this trade to potentially counteract and catch the next trade. So I'm in a bit of an indecisive mindset right now for XRP, but all I know is, as I've said many times over, and as I actually said in the prior video as well, if we do actually break from this trend line, there was two scenarios I gave, and as you know, I always give the highest probability. Unfortunately, this one didn't work out too well in our favor, but the beauty is I've already been preparing for this scenario. Now, because of the importance of this trend line that we have located here, and because we've actually broken through, you know the general rule of thumb. So looking at where we are right now, pretty crucial region, psychological level as well, intraday support and resistance, intraday as well if you wish. We've spiked straight up to another zone, and as you can see, we've pretty much been bouncing back and forth between this zone anyway. So I was actually a bit surprised to see that little pull higher after seeing the reversal from here, because we essentially broke through support, retested as resistance, and pulled lower. So the original bias did come through very nicely. We still managed to gain a good little bit of movement on XRP, but thankfully with this movement we could have dragged our stop losses a little bit lower to break even. Now looking at where this is currently, if I just take this back roughly over to this zone, you can see that although we are back above this region and we've broken the trend line, the general rule of thumb for me is, the trend line will very, very likely always come back to be retested. It's normally during these moments, as you've seen many times over, everyone tries to jump the gun. They try to jump ship and get on board now. Now, this is why I've actually been saying over the past few weeks in particular, this is the perfect time to be buying physical cryptocurrency. Anywhere within this region here has been a phenomenal region to buy. And if you're a long-term investor, even buying at 28 cents is still a very good price. And it doesn't actually mean the market is going to go higher just yet. We actually have a very good potential trade setup on our hands right now if you are willing to take that additional risk. So looking at the setup right now, you can see overall in the grand scheme of things, the key level of support and resistance is actually around this region here. Now looking at where we are, we've simply come down, we're still making lower lows and we're still making higher highs. So all we're really seeing is essentially, from what I've gathered right now, a Fibonacci pullback. So dragging this over to here, you can see we're actually at the 61.8 right now, and there is a bit of room just above for wick fishing to 0.786. Now, as of present, I'm not actually too certain we will be seeing that 30 cents region just yet, but I am willing to leave that open, because if we do start tapping this 30 cents region or even 30.5 cents, then we will have another excellent short opportunity on our hands. Because of what's happened now, because we're at our break even, I can comfortably sit aside and understand that we're at the Fibonacci level, we've broken a little bit higher, and we can now be continuing our next movement down, which funnily enough aligns up with the key levels yet again. And that's why I always use the Fibonacci's in addition after we've captured or understood the overall market dynamics. So putting a Fibonacci onto this does make it a bit clearer. Adding the key levels always makes things a bit clearer, and that's why I wanted to keep it clean before the video and just show you how a little bit of analysis and just plotting crucial levels can suddenly switch your bias and actually show you the overall bigger picture. So again, using the weekly as a good example, looking pretty good to be fair with you. We've got some nice reversals here. We haven't really managed to break below this zone of around 23.5, 24 cents. So it is looking pretty promising right now. The XRP may actually be able to get ahead of the rest of the market. I've said this from the very beginning anyway. When the next bull run does come, or you do see the next altcoin breakout, it's very likely going to be XRP or ZRX that actually starts leading the way for the next altcoin rally. So going over to this 4-hour chart right now, here's what I'm looking at for the time being. I'm not really willing to enter right now. I'll just scrap this all together and get rid of this. The first thing that comes to mind is not just the Fibonacci's up here. We'll even get rid of those for the time being. And looking at this now, actually, from how this is holding, let's just see how this reacts, because if it does break above, then we can expect to push up to this region here, where I will then begin to enter short. The reason being is we've broken this trend line. It's been holding very, very well. So if you notice this, we were forming a nice wedge as well, a nice counter trend. We didn't manage to break it, we managed to sustain it. But what this means is now this trend line must come back at some point and become retested. So what that means is we potentially have, if it's a long opportunity on our hands, the one thing I mentioned from the very beginning, let's monitor this price action here as well, because no matter what happens within this region, there should be a nice short opportunity coming up. No matter what happens, regardless, the trend line retest normally comes through. And the original bias for me was, in the event we see this trend line actually break, then we'll simply await a retest of the trend line and the 25 cents region, where we can then begin to potentially anticipate long opportunities. Looking at how this is holding right now on the 1 hour, looking pretty promising, but I'm not really willing to take any bets on this just yet. I wouldn't really be jumping ship just now, knowing there is a 78.6 above. I'd like to see this wick fish a little bit more first and sit on the sidelines, because remember, the goal here is not to just instantly jump in the next trade once it goes against you or once something doesn't work out in your favor. It's all about patience. It's all about being calculated. So for me right now, even if I miss the potential short, I understand if we come back and retest this trend line, there's a phenomenal long opportunity on our hands. So for the time being, I want you guys to just be patient. We haven't lost any money on this trade. There's no need to be, negative. There's no need to be sad. There's no need to be emotional, because we've had no result, which is better than having a loss. And that's always how I viewed it. That stop loss is there to secure you in the event this happens. And if you've lost absolutely nothing, you're more than prepared for the next setup. And thankfully, going on Twitter, I'm seeing this bias shift between all of you wizards now. People are messaging me saying stop loss was closed at break even. When should we, when's the next move? This, that. But the fact you're telling me stop losses are hit at break even is a very reassuring sign, because you're taking those guidelines safely. If we were to be greedy, and let's just say we saw that movement down there, but we kept our stop losses above here, we would have been wiped out pretty quickly and suffered a whole loss of what we risk. Now, although we only risk 20 to 30% of our normal position size, it's still not necessary to be losing that amount if it doesn't need to be that way. So with the stop losses securing us, we're looking at this now. I'm in two different minds, because BTC, again, it's a bit of a confusing market right now, but BTC for me, although we've seen some form of head and shoulders and a failure to break $7,800, which was one of our bonus levels actually for profit taking, it obviously has worked magnificently well, and I'm glad I took some profits off the table here to avoid suffering any drastic drawdown. But then again, it's still in profit anyway. So with stop losses above here, it just allows a little bit more breathing room for this trade to move, because if you look right now, what's actually happened realistically, we've broken below this crucial level of support here. We've actually come back below. Although we're within these boundaries for the time being, which is a little bit alarming, we have just seen a little bit of a push higher. So I'm actually happy to let BTC have that little bit of breathing room. If it gets hit, I'm just going to re-enter again, because it's still looking pretty favorable for a short-term position right now. So margin trading aspects as per, they are very different to our physical long-term cryptocurrency holdings, because BTC, as I suggested, I'm holding my physical crypto. I've been buying a lot of BTC around this region. I've been buying a lot of XRP around this region. And the reason being is, when you're combining this with trading, let's just say today I've been buying a lot of XRP around this region, and this trade closed me out at break even. I've lost absolutely nothing, but my portfolio has grown drastically from this movement from 23 cents up to 28 cents. This is the beauty of essentially almost hedging your long-term portfolio and combining it with margin trading. So all that's happened is I've actually ended up gaining money even though the trade was closed at break even. It's phenomenal when you can grasp these very simple concepts. It's not complicated, it's not complex at all, and it's actually very easy. Same goes for BTC. So guess what? Not only have I taken profit here and the trade's in profit, but BTC, after buying physical BTC within these regions, has now jumped up in profit. So although my trade's in profit, the actual physical portfolio is also growing alongside this. There's a counter for every movement. And that's actually why I love shorting the crypto market, because whenever a short does not work out well in your favor, your portfolio grows instead. So you're never essentially losing money as long as your risk management is tight. So putting that into perspective, looking at this as well on a Fibonacci level, although my stop loss probably correlates very nicely with a Fibonacci, as you can see it's in between the 0.618 and the 78.6, it doesn't really matter to me, because if it spikes up to this region, I've actually closed the trade out in profit from here, and it's closed out in profit from there. So I've actually won a trade, I've actually captured the bulk of the movement already, and if it pulls up and starts gearing back for another reversal to the downside, you're simply re-entering and capturing the same movement twice. This is essentially what I gave you guys over here. When we caught the initial movement, it pulled back, and then we shorted it again. It's essentially a double barrel movement. So with XRP right now, very simple stuff. We are going to be sitting on our hands, sitting patiently and awaiting the trend line retest. If you want to go for a very wide stop loss and a very small position, then by all means do so. But I know unless I see some form of wick fishing or I see a drastic pull down, I'm not going to strike yet. And this is the beauty of understanding what can happen in both scenarios of the market. So for long positions, we'll simply be awaiting for this region, stop losses around here, and then we could be looking at a very large upside breakout. If I look at where this is right now, let's just see if there's a nice Fibonacci correlation, and it's looking pretty good. So you can have a very nice setup on your hands if you see a very sharp slump to the downside. You're looking at around the 4 to 0 risk to reward if you drag that down to there. So you're looking at entries around the Fibonacci's of the 78.6, ideally not the 61.8 because these key levels are located just below, but then we could have a nice drive back up to 29 to 30 cents. So we haven't actually scrapped the downside bias for XRP just yet, but there is a potential setup here if this level sustains, as there is now also a potential short opportunity. So it's providing many opportunities, but even if we can see this region here around 29 cents met, then we may have a very nice short on our hands as well. So right now, it's simply down to the market to make its next move. We are not in control right now. The market is going to make its next move and we will strike from there. And that's the reason we've even done this, or the reason I've made this video now, is just to reassure you guys and let you know that during these moments, as you can probably tell, I'm very calm, I'm very relaxed. There's no need to ever stress, because if you approach this level headed, you understand that no matter what happens in this market, as long as your stop losses are secured and as long as you're patient, you will always remain profitable. So we're going to leave this for the time being. We're going to sit on our hands and wait for this. You've got two opportunities provided. Let's see which one moves in our favor, and then we strike from there. And this is the beauty of it. It's not about being confused. It's not about having several different scenarios. It's about being prepared for every single situation. So we know now If this pushes higher, we short it down. If it drops all the way down to here, we simply go long. We're going to be evaluating this obviously once it comes down, because I haven't scrapped the bearish bias just yet. So because BTC is still lingering a lot lower than what it should be in comparison to XRP, we have to take this into consideration. And if we go over to here, we can see the BTC dominance. If I refresh this, is now sitting at around 66.7%, which dropped yesterday from 67%. So we're seeing a little bit of a dip on that side as well, looking a bit promising, knowing that XRP has managed to overthrow this. But the BTC dominance is still strong enough to have a very large control over this market. And even when we fell and captured this initial trade here, BTC was at a pretty significant and similar dominance as well. So it shows that you can be seeing very similar movements even with this current price point of BTC. So I'm letting this linger as well for the time being. I'm just looking at how this rolls. We've also got a fairly good trend line set up by the looks of it as well. Let's see how this one works out. So that's been broken. Let's check the extended trend line from body to body, see if this provides a much more fitting picture. And there we can see we've actually got a bit of room over here for a bit of wick fishing as well. Got a nice little setup, even if it's from this recent swing high to this recent swing low, and it correlates quite nicely as well. So if you're using that example and not the above example on a more intraday perspective, you're at the 61.8 right now, which may not sustain, to be honest with you. If this trend line's located just up here, I would be a bit cautious. I wouldn't be surprised if BTC starts dipping down to maybe, let's just say, the 0.5 over here, around $8,120, or even just tapping around $8,150 before breaching towards this zone here. I will not be entering any more positions on this, as I'm already very well positioned, and it's only a small position anyway. But I'm taking into consideration all of these factors, and I know no matter what happens in this situation, I'm ending or at least starting the new week with a profit regardless. And that's the beauty of these strategies and the way I actually handle and manage these trades. So sit on your hands as well for now, for the time being, for BTC. Be a little patient and see what's actually going to be occurring very soon. For the time being, everything is still running smoothly in my eyes. We've seen the push higher, but looking at where BTC is located in comparison to XRP, and considering BTC's current market dominance, it doesn't really shake me up just yet. And for all we know, this could be a quick drive up to actually retest broken support, turned resistance, and then it begins tumbling even further. So as I said, we've got until the end of October, and I believe the end of October is when we're going to start seeing that shift to a bullish bias, and that's when we're going to start reversing back to yearly highs. So by the end of October, I'd say from the start of the fourth week approximately, we should begin to see some form of incline in the market's prices. And this is why I've been saying physical crypto buys are essential. Even though we're speculating and hedging against it with short positions, you should be buying BTC and XRP. I'm not really a BTC buyer myself too much, but I like to buy a little bit here and there, especially at these phenomenal prices. We do not know what could be happening from this point onwards, and it's not worth taking a risk knowing how fortunate we are to see these prices again, considering we were at $14,000 literally just a few weeks ago. So when you take that into perspective, from $14,000 down to $8,000, you're looking at a very phenomenal discount. And for me, I view it as a discount. If you go to the Boxing Day sales or Black Friday sales, you're very likely going to buy a lot more than you anticipated, because the price is a lot cheaper than what it normally would be at retail. Now imagine $14,000 or $20,000 was retail price. We've suddenly had a Black Friday sale come soon. That's why the physical buys will always be essential, no matter what margin trades I give. And that's why when I am giving you these calls, I'm also throwing in these long-term investments. So no matter what happens, and as long as you are following the guidelines, you will remain profitable. So for the time being, let's just be a bit cautious. I did throw out that theory, obviously, that BTC could even come up to 9,200 before reversing even lower. But for the time being, I'm still not really too fixated on this. We have seen this a few times before. As you can see, consolidation, and then bang, we slam down. We are going to be seeing a lot of choppy behavior. We've just broken what many people didn't expect to actually see. We've fallen all the way to $8,000. So the market is currently in a state of confusion, a state of shock, and the price action is absolutely reflecting this right now. All kinds of confusion going on here, all kinds of mess, so many wicks, but overall we are still in a pretty bearish trend, and we have been in a bear market despite the start of the year being fairly bullish. We are now currently in a short-term bear market, and as I said, the end of 2019 is going to be a bit of consolidation and a bit more bearish before gearing up for the final shift of the year to actually start blowing through the roof. So a little bit of patience is needed here during this moment, and not to mention as well, if you are zooming out and you are using those daily and weekly timeframes like I suggest, you're looking at, again, a level that's been broken. We're now consolidating between this region, so we could easily be seeing, if I zoom in, break below, retest a bit of wick fishing over here, and then we could continue back down on our merry way. And if you consider where we are with BTC, with these key levels all working out still very well in our favor, and then you consider where XRP is around this current region, driving straight up towards another crucial key region of intraday and daily resistance. When you consider this, and you've considered that XRP may have found resistance as well, with a little bit of room to wick fish higher, just as we're expecting with BTC, then overall the bias still remains valid. So this video is more just to reassure you guys that for the time being, I have not changed my bias, I have not got out of BTC, I'm still holding that trade, and you're still going to make a profit regardless as long as you are following the guidelines. So keep it cool, guys, let the market do its thing, and it could still be a very profitable end to the week. Let's wait for the wick fishing. If we get stopped out, then by all means necessary, if this trend line still holds, we will look to just enter again. Or a worst case scenario, we sit on our hands, wait for an even bigger movement, and focus on XRP instead. So there's many different scenarios coming through. But as you know, the general rule of thumb, there's no need to worry if we do break the trend line. You'll be closed out in profit, we'll wait for the retest, and then we'll go long from that opportunity instead. But for me right now, all eyes are on XRP. I do believe we should start seeing a reversal from this region, a little bit of wick fishing up to maybe 28.5 to 29 cents. I don't think 30 cents will come through just yet. So a bit of patience on this side, just waiting for this to unfold. And then from there, I'll be providing another video update, another Telegram update. And from there, we can strike and capture yet another movement. So far, so good. Still a profitable week. One trade closed at break even. I think we're still going to have a very phenomenal week ahead of us, Wizards. And not to mention the end of 2019 Wizard platform in just a matter of weeks now. There are so many things happening at the end of October. Brexit's occurring. Even that could have a very interesting effect on the market. So if we start to see Brexit actually have effects on the market as well, it will show that external fundamental factors are starting to play a very predominant role in the market as well. So there's a lot of interesting things happening, and I'm truly excited for what's coming forward. As long as you guys follow these guidelines, you will be good and secure, as the Wizards always are. Now guys, I'll be back in the Telegram shortly, another video update if we see any drastic movement, and of course if we do see the nice setup come through, I'll be blasting that into the Telegram and on Twitter as soon as possible as well.